Welcome to Shantae's Corner, where we are here to encourage, support, and uplift one another. So, today our topic is adulting, things they don't tell you. Ah, man, I remember as a little kid growing up, you're like, I can't wait to be an adult. I can't wait to be on my own. I can't wait to, you made me think of nobody telling me what to do. Man, if I'd have knew what I know now, I would have definitely enjoyed those childhood years, not having to worry about being an adult. As as what's become coming to say, adulting sucks. And so I just want to kind of focus on three things today that nobody tells you about when you become an adult. So the things I want to talk about are relationships, finances, and goals. So they kind of all tie together, but what I want to begin with is relationships. Not just being in relationships with mates, but being in a relationship with your relationships with your families, your co-workers, everything changes once you become an adult. You look at things differently, and a lot of that does come from with the way you grew up in your childhood. Um, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it here before, but I do work in customer service and I take phone calls all day. And so growing up in the South, we were always taught to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It was just that respect. That was a way of showing respect. And it's so funny now, when I moved to California, if I said yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, people were like, don't call me ma'am. I'm not a ma'am, but it's hard for me to not do it, even if I'm older than, people, because I know I do it with my customers. I've seen that I'm older than them, but it's just such an habit, and a level of having respect for your fellow person, male or female, by saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And I was just thinking about that today while I was at work because I got a caller from Texas, and which I love their accents. I can always tell when I'm speaking to at least some people from Texas. And he was actually a lawyer, so I was like, oh wow, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And you don't see that as much with the younger people today. It's like, even in the South, that's not instilled like it was when we grew up. And I think that does reflect on the way, or have an impact on the way younger or youth see the people that are older than them. Because for us, that was a sign of respect, even if I don't know you're younger than me. But by just saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, I'm being respectful. But now, it's not considered a good thing to say yes and no, ma'am. And I'm just sorry, but it's just something I grew up with, and it's just something that I'm just gonna still continue to do. I do notice I don't do it like I used to when I was younger, but for me, it's just having that respect for your fellow man, fellow woman. You know, you say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And as far as relationships, when you're growing up, it just really so depends on what type of dynamic you see, because I think a lot of us don't realize that continues in our relationships, whether you have a good relationship with your parents, with their grandparents, with your sisters, brothers. It all impacts the relationships that we form and develop as we grow up. And I know for me, I struggle with that. It's something that I've always struggled with, telling people I love you, you know, keep in contact. I'm the type of person I really I struggle with keeping that connection with people. It's just, I don't know. Um I just don't. And that's the honest truth. I just really have a hard time, like, just, you know, I don't know, well, you know, even just sitting here thinking about it, I don't know. I really can't even justify. I guess growing up, you know, with the people that I was around all the time, I was close, and maybe that's just part of the reason why I am the way I am, that I don't, you know, maintain those like tight relationships. Like, I'm like good with people that I'm around, but as far as like people that are not in my physical um vicinity, my relationships do tend to um not be as strong, and I struggle with keeping that connection. I'm just being honest here, and it could be because, you know, that's how it was when I grew up. I was close to the people that I was around, but, you know, as far as, and I do remember being a childhood, because my cousin and I, she grew up in a different state, and that's the way we kept in contact. We would, you know, send each other letters in the mail. Now it's to the point that, you know, when I think about it, I'll send her an email, but we definitely don't have that connection. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't think it's just myself. I think it's part of the way things are, because everything's so instant now. You keep in touch with, you know, people on social media, and the connections are not just, it's like that community is not like it was, you know. And I've talked about that with people that I'm around. Like, you know, holidays, you always knew you were gonna see your family that you hadn't seen throughout the year, but it's not like that anymore. um Everybody does their own thing, and so I think that definitely has affected how the way our society is. And you don't have that closeness, and that's why we see all of this foolishness going on. You are not prepared to handle your finances. So school does not really prepare you for life. Um, Such as, I remember, I don't even know if the young kids learn today, but we did learn how to write checks. That's the one thing I do remember. And with my math teacher, seventh grade, Mr. Polk, he taught us how to write checks, even though I sucked in his class. I really did. But you don't, you're not really prepared to be an adult, to manage a household, to, you know, and I think that's why a lot of us are so crappy at maintaining good credit, maintaining living within our means, because it's not really something, you know, some of us are tired. I can't say everybody, because some, you know, families are much better. And it's not even just to do with their finance, their economic status in society, because just because somebody's lower class, they can definitely be able to live within their means, versus somebody who has a lot of money that's just spending like crazy. So I don't really think that school prepares you for that. And it's like, if your family isn't really well versed in managing their money as well, you don't really get a good example of how to do that. So a lot of us, once we moved out on our own, it's just like, okay, now how do I do this? How do I manage, you know? And that's something that I've struggled with over the past 20 years being an adult, is learning how to manage my finances. I'm definitely better than I was, but I still definitely struggle with, you know, making sure living within my means, and Now, one thing that I do believe in is at least making sure your bills are paid. You know, I'm not that type of person that bothers me. I um like to make sure my bills are paid, but sometimes being in a particular situation, you may not be able to even maintain your bills, because like went through after the pandemic, my income dropped from, I mean, it's less than half of what it was before the pandemic. So that kind of shows where being able to manage and live within your means comes in handy, because I went from making one thing to making significantly less. And even though my bills decreased, I still have stuff that I have to pay. And, you know, dealing with the student loans. Oh my goodness. Young people, any young person that's watching this, if you can avoid getting student loans, I encourage you to please, if you do whatever you can to at least not get student loans, or get as few as possible, because I can definitely tell you for myself, it's not worth it. If I could definitely do things differently, I would not put myself in this financial situation of having to deal with student loans. And for one thing, I know for sure I cannot say that I wasn't told. I was told. I just didn't listen. And that's another thing, is being a young person, you don't listen. I mean, a lot of times it's like you don't want to hear what that older generation is telling you when it's something you don't want to hear, but trust me, if they're warning you about something, they're warning you for a reason. And so, I mean, if I would have known that adulting required so much, um, oh my gosh, it's just it really, really, anybody, you're a manager. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to manage your household, whether you're married or single. You still have to live within your means. You have to make sure stuff gets done. So, had I known that there's so much burden being an adult, man, I would have enjoyed my childhood. So that's something I would definitely want to recommend to any person that's um, either getting ready to become an adult, or even if you're a young person or you're a new adult living out on your own. Please, 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 please take it into consideration, and like they say, take what you need and leave what you don't. And then the last thing I want to discuss is always having goals. And I remember, you know, in our senior book, it's like you had this section that said, what would I be doing in the next 5 years? And my 5 year outlook, look, nothing, it still doesn't look like it. I still haven't gotten to that point, what I thought my life was gonna look like. But I can tell you, I've learned so much. I really feel like I didn't become an adult till I became an adult in my 30s. I've had to grow up so much, and you really don't grow up until you have to grow up, to be truthful. Setting goals to accomplish whatever it is, you always need a short-term, long-term, life-term goals. You should always be working to achieve something. And it's not just that something you say, but it really gives you something to focus on. I mean, you need to know that I have something coming up, you know, that I have to get done by this date. I need something that I'm working on toward the long term, whether it's better finances, having your own house, you know, seeing your business thrive. And you need a lifetime goal. And I can tell you, for me, my lifetime goal is to continue to grow in Christ, to continue to be, how can I say it, to continue to elevate in Christ. And, you know, show other people that, you know, don't give up. And not saying that you won't fall, because in order to be successful, you're gonna fall. You're gonna, you know, make some mess up. That's what prepares you as you elevate. So you're definitely gonna fall short on some things, but when you have those goals and you know what you want to do with your life, you know who you are, and that's a big goal, to know who you are. Because a lot of times, you know, I remember as a kid we say things, I want to be such and such, you know, I want to be a teacher, I wanted to be a singer. And that's some of the things that I've said. And um I love doing those things now, but it's definitely not something that I could see doing for the rest of my life, just explicitly in the role that I saw myself doing it, such as being a teacher in a classroom. Because honestly, sitting here speaking to you guys is a way to teach, a way to share what you've learned. So this is what I enjoy doing, and I enjoy doing it this way, but more so even being able to interact with people to get, you know, their perspective, and having them understand what I'm saying, you know. So I just want to leave you guys with that today. And like I always tell you guys, let your words speak. I will talk to you guys later.